Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. We're back in the old room because the family's home. We've been shifted out of there, and we've also got ourselves a mic, so hopefully I sound a little bit better. But I want to start off this video by saying that everyone is wrong, that my Jathebandi is right. Whatever Sant you guys follow, whatever Baba you guys follow, whoever you follow, you're completely wrong. You've got Sikhi wrong. You need to come to my way so we can put you back on the right path. Now that probably sounds very, very familiar to a lot of you. And what we've gone and done is we've actually turned Sikhi into the very thing that the Gurus were trying to dismantle. We've turned it into a sectarian religion where we've got this one-size-fits-all Maryada where everyone else is wrong, that only my group is right. We've started defending humans and groups more than we defend the Guru. But what if I were to say that no Jathebandi is right and that only the Guru is right? That whatever you do, whatever group you follow, whoever you follow, that ultimately they should be leading you back to the Guru. However, what's happened now is we've all become salespeople, salesmen for our own Jathebandi. Now imagine if you're new to Sikhi and you're coming into Sikhi and you've just seen the issues that a lot of Muslims have in terms of Shia, Sunni. Where you've got loads of Christians who debate Catholic, Protestant, Orthodox, whatever it is. And now you come into Sikhi, you've come in through the first door and now you're in your porch, and the second door is like, there's about 1,000 doors, and you're sort of like stood there and you know, everyone's just throwing leaflets at you that, no, my way's right, no, this way's right, come to me, everyone else is wrong, they've all got Gurbani wrong, they've got the arth wrong, they've got the meaning wrong. Mate, imagine if you are someone new coming into Sikhi, you'd think, what the hell is going on here? And that is exactly what we've turned Sikhi into. We've turned it into now a religion where people are getting censored for having an opinion, for having a different interpretation. And this is quite scary, because the Gurus were the ones who openly went out to so many different places and debated so many different people. They wanted these intellectual conversations. They wanted this vichar. So they could sit down as brothers, as sisters, with a common goal of finding the Atma within. Whereas now what we've done is, if you don't follow my version of Sikhi, you're going to hell, you're wrong, you need to start again. Only I can find what's within myself, not someone else, not some Baba, not some group, not some Sant. It's from what I do, it's the Korj, it's the practice, it's the meditation, it's the Seva, it's the Dharam Yudh, it's the Prachar of Sikhi that I do that allows me to find what is within. Not anyone else. That is not what Sikhi is. We're not a transactional religion. We're not a religion where you do XYZ to get XYZ, where you get certain points for saying certain things or doing certain things. That's not how Sikhi works. That is what the Gurus were trying to debunk, to get rid of. And we've become that very thing. We've fallen into that trap. We know there's a basic understanding of Sikhi. We know that you have to do your Nitnem, that you have to do your Amrit Vela, that you have to read Rehit, Skeet and Sohila, take part in Seva, reach the point of taking Amrit, wear your Panjagakar, take part in Dharam Yudh, in Prachar of Sikhi. We know this. These are the basics. You don't need to be in any Jathebandi, in any group, to know this. So I think it's time now that we all stop being these salesmen, these salespeople for our Jathebandi, and actually start becoming a student of the Guru. That we're all the beings of that one. There is only one God. Sabna jiyan ka ek data. There's only one creator. In following Jathebandi, we have fallen for the trap of labels. I'd find myself doing this as well. I'm definitely guilty of doing this, is where certain things, certain people to me are just associated with certain Jathebandi. And when I go through my contact list on my phone, I've even got their names saved with their Jathebandi. It shows myself that we've become divided by labels, and it almost feels like different religions sometimes. It's like I've got someone saved as, you know, something completely different to what I am. And we all like to say that we're all flowers of the same garden, but we're arguing over which flower is actually right. We're all children of the same Guru, of Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. So why can't we just get along? The next point that I want to make is about this one-size-fits-all myth, because a lot of people say the reason why we can't get along with each other is because a certain group interprets a Pangati a certain way and we interpret it this way, our lineage of Sants, our lineage of our Jathebandi, Samparda, whatever you want to call it, has been following this meaning since the time of the Guru, so we're probably right, and that's why we can't get along with anyone else, because they're all wrong. But every single interpretation of Gurbani is just an interpretation. It doesn't mean it's true. It's just an interpretation. The only truth is the Gurbani itself. An interpretation could be wrong, it could be right. But at the end of the day, the only one that we know is truly right is what the Guru says. Now let's take meat, for example. In one place, Bhagat Kabir Ji saying, Pang machli surapan jo jo prani khaye. And in another place in Gurbani, Maharaj is saying, Kaun mas, kaun saag kahave, kis mein paap samane. That what is mas, what is meat, what is saag, what is vegetables, what one has more paap associated with it. So just from these two pangatiyan, certain groups can take them in certain ways. Now context matters a lot, yes of course. Each pangati has its context behind it. But how can we dictate what is truly right? Because I could read that in one way and say that, you know what, meat is allowed. But someone else could read that in another way and say meat isn't allowed. But why does that make any one of us less of a Sikh? All we've done is interpret Gurbani. And when it comes to the point of whose interpretation is right or whose way is right, that doesn't matter. Because you just got to see what aligns best with your idea of the basic understanding of Sikhi. You can't let someone else shove down a meaning, an interpretation down your throat if it doesn't make sense to you. And that happens to a lot of people where they look at certain Bhakti and think, no, this means something else. But when they go speak to people, they're getting told that they're wrong. But in the back of their mind, they're like, no, I think this Bhakti means this. And you're putting them into a dilemma, into a bit of a sticky situation for themselves where now they're doubting their mind. And the way I personally like to view Jathebandi and Sampardas is from our basic understanding of Puratan Rehit, of older ways of living that have been written down. And what we can see from these older ways of living, these old Rehit, is that they're all slightly different. You know, there's small differences depending on when they were written, depending on who the author was. And there's always a small difference in all of them. And what does this tell myself? It tells myself that if I were to now write a Rahatnama, my personal way of living, 200 years from now, someone might read my way of living and think that is the ideal way to live, that is the ideal routine. So for example, let's say for myself, I'm writing my own Rahatnama, and we'll just stick to the morning, that I wake up at 5 a.m. I write down, I wake up at 5 a.m. The first thing I do, as soon as I get up out my bed, is drink a big glass of water, and I say, Naam, Sri Waheguru. From that point, I go and do my Ishnan, come back to my room, I light a toof, and I sit down and read my Nitnem. Following my Nitnem, I do a bit of Shastra Puja, and then I do 50 push-ups as part of my personal everyday Rahatnama. This is my morning routine. Now, if someone was to read that Rahatnama, they'd probably think, yeah, this sounds pretty good. Because you've got the basics in there, you've got the Nitnem and the Ishnan, you've got the Naam Jap in there. But there's also a few little extra bits in there that I want to do through my own Sharda, through my own love for Sikhi. And we see that a lot with Rahatnama. There's subtle differences that individual who was writing the Rahatnama mentions within their writings that they did. Now that doesn't mean what they did was wrong. It doesn't mean that the group that started after them has to follow everything that they did to the T because they did it that way. They just did what felt right to them because they had that much Sharda for the Guru. They wanted to add things, they wanted to make a few changes that allowed them to practice their Sikhi better. But at the end of the day, all of these Rahatname have one main similarity, is that the Guru is the Guru, is that the Guru is the teacher, and everything that they do has that basic understanding of Sikhi, which we mentioned at the start of the video. And if your Jathebandi, if your group takes away from that love for the Guru and makes you feel like you're better than other people because you're part of that group, it's probably not the right group for you, because everything that you do ultimately should be taking you back to the Guru, not to an individual, not to a Sant, not to a Puratan text, not to a lineage. It should be taking you directly back to what we know is completely true and is always true and will always be true, and that is back to the Guru, to the Guru Granth Sahib Ji. That is it. And again, for people who come into Sikhi, it's very important that you don't fall for these sales pitches. I can't lie, Singhs are very good salesmen, and they actually do a really, really good job at selling their Jathebandi. However, for people who are coming into Sikhi, like, you know, I do throughout this channel, is actually giving actionable changes, things that you can implement into your life, is to actually find Sikhi for yourself in your own way, and then you can align yourself if you have to a group. But until you don't know who you are for yourself, until you don't know or have a basic understanding of the Guru, there is no point going into a group, because then you've just become another soldier. You've just become someone who consumes information and stores that information and then thinks that information is right. You've not actually done any core, you've not done any practice on that information. You've just become another foot soldier. You've become a soldier for this Jathebandi, another number. And that isn't what Sikhi is about. Sikhi's never been about numbers. You know, there's so many religions out there that have way more followers than Sikhi. But we're the first people to say that it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality. So if you do become a soldier for a Jathebandi, you're not of a very high quality. You've just become another number, you've become a quantity to that group. And exactly as we mentioned in the last video, you can't blindly follow anything. You need to be studying Sikhi for yourself, finding your way. And then, yeah, like I said, if you feel like you need to then align to a group, you can. If you don't, you don't have to. It doesn't change anything, because the whole point is to love your Guru. And the Guru alone tells us that the path of the Guru, that the path of Sikhi is the most direct spiritual path. So yeah, to conclude this video, I think it's very important that as a Panth, we stop fighting on these little, quite stupid ideas that we have at the moment about censoring people, about getting rid of certain people's views, certain people's vichar, about removing them from the stages of our Gurdwara. We know what the basics of Sikhi are. If that person is still aligning you back to the Guru through them basic ways, there's nothing wrong with that. And we're facing way bigger issues in the Panth. You know, take grooming for example, alcohol, domestic violence, abuse. There's so many bigger issues that we should be tackling, but we're here focusing on my Sant is better than your Sant. This is ridiculous. It's stupid. We need to stop doing this. We need to move forward together as one Panth. We need to see ourselves as Sevadars of the Guru, and we've all got our own way of doing it. You know, we go back to the Missal period. Every Missal operated in its own way with a common goal, spreading Sikhi and preventing injustices, providing Deg and Deg to the whole world, bringing Khalsa Raj. But everyone was operating in their own autonomous groups. But that didn't mean that they went and started killing each other just because they didn't agree with each other. They knew what the goal was, and they all pushed towards that one goal. And even if you do follow a Jathebandi, a Sant, whoever it is, again, just remember the goal is to get people to connect with the Guru, not with your Jathebandi. Just stop being a salesman. It doesn't look good. So yeah, in the comments, let's all get together. Let's write some ideas. Let's come up with some ways that we can actually bring more unity into the Panth, and how we can move forward together as a Panth and tackle the larger issues at hand. And as always, please do like, subscribe and share the video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.